Okay, so numbers 9 through 30 every third problem, and then 43 is today's assignment. So for the first two, we're gonna use long division. Actually, for the first few, we're gonna use long division. So you check the leading term with this leading term, and you ask yourself, x times what gives you x squared? And so that would be x. And then you multiply this by the binomial and put your result right here. Okay, so x times x is x squared. 3 times x is 3x. And now we're going to subtract. So remember, when you subtract, you add the opposite. So I'm going to change the signs here. I'm changing color so it's more obvious. And so I combine now. X squared minus x squared is 0. 5x minus 3x is 2x. Bring the next term down. And then again, x into 2x. That gives you 2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. We're going to subtract. So we're going to add the opposite. So this becomes a negative. And so the result is 0. So it says to use long division to divide and use the result to factor the dividend completely. So it's completely factored. So x plus 3 is a factor because we got a result of 0 as a remainder. And the other factor is x plus 2. Alright, for 12, remember we always look at the leading term, so 2x into 2x cubed. So something times 2x should give you 2x cubed, and that would be x squared. And so now we're going to multiply this by this. So that gives us 2x cubed minus 3x squared. We're going to subtract, so we're going to add the opposite. There, I could change the sign like that. And that gives you 0, right? So the next thing is bring down the next two terms. Because since we didn't have any left, any terms right here, and we need 2 because this is a binomial, so I'm going to bring down the two terms. So negative 50x plus 75. So 2x times what gives you negative 50x? And for that one, that would be negative 25. And so I have negative 25 times 2x is negative 50x. And negative 25 times negative 3 is 75. We're going to add the opposite. So we're going to change the sign here and add the opposite there. The result is 0. So 2x minus 3 is a factor of this polynomial. But it also asked you to factor completely. So notice that the other factor is x squared minus 25. Well, that one factors further. So the complete factorization would be 2x minus 3. And then we have difference of squares, x plus 5, x minus 5. So this would be the complete factorization of the cubic, the dividend that we're dividing. Alright, so 15 through 21 just is asking you to use long division to divide. Notice I had to add a couple of placeholders right here because I was missing a square and I was missing an x. So that's why I put 0x squared and 0x. So now I'm going to divide x into 7x cubed. That would be 7x squared. So you multiply. So now we're going to subtract, so we add the opposite. So that changes to negative. So 0 minus 14 is negative 14. We bring down the next term. X into negative 14x squared is negative 14x. We multiply. Negative 28x. We're going to add the opposite. That's subtraction. So then we get 28x bring down the 3. Oops, 3. And x into 28x is 28. We're going to multiply. Plus 56. We're going to add the opposite. So then that gives me negative 53 is my remainder. So your answer would be 7x squared minus 14x plus 28 plus negative 53 over x plus 2. Or you could just put minus 53 over x plus 2. Alright, so x squared times something gives you x to the 4th, and that would be x squared. So I'm going to multiply. Minus 2x cubed plus 3x squared. We're going to add the opposite because we're subtracting, and it becomes a negative, so all the signs change. So this is going to give me 2x cubed, and I'll bring down the 0x, and probably the plus. Well, we'll see. So then you check x squared times something gives you 2x cubed. So that would be 2x. So that gives you 2x cubed minus 4x squared plus 6x. Okay, so we're going to subtract we're going to add the opposite because we're subtracting. Okay, now notice that we got a 0x squared, right, right here, because this was 0x squared. So combine here, so nothing to add to the 4x squared, so then that means we have 4x squared. X is 0 plus, or 0 minus 6 is negative 6x, and then bring down the 1. Okay. Something times x squared equals 4x squared. That would be 4. So we're going to multiply. Minus 8x plus 12. So we're going to add the opposite. So here, here, and then this changes to negative. So then I have 2x minus 11. So this is my remainder right here. So my answer is going to be, let's move it a little bit so you can see what it is. X squared plus 2x plus 4 plus 2x minus 11 over x squared minus 2x plus 3. Alright, so notice I changed the divisor because in the original problem it was written in factored form, x minus 1 quantity squared. So I just multiplied it out so that now I have x squared minus 2x plus 1. So go ahead and ask yourself, something times x squared is going to give me 2x cubed. So that would be 2x. So 2x times the trinomial outside, that would be 2x cubed minus 4x squared plus 2x. We're going to subtract, so that means we're going to add the opposite. Like that. Combine your two polynomials, so I get 0 here, and this also becomes 0. So I'm left with negative 15x minus 2x, so that's negative 17x. Bring down the 5. And x squared does not go into negative 17x, so this is my remainder. So the answer would be 2x plus negative 17x plus 5 all over x squared minus 2x plus 1. Alright, so for 24 through 30, we're going to use synthetic division to find the other factor, the other factor. Let's see. So I put it in order already in standard form, just writing down the coefficients. So the first step is bring down the 5. Then you multiply the 5 with the negative 3, and you get negative 15. You combine these two numbers right here, so that gives you 3. And then you just repeat the process. So now I'm going to multiply the negative 3 with the 3. That gives me negative 9. And so now we're going to combine these two. That gives me negative 2. And then we're going to multiply the negative 3 with a negative 2 by the negative 2. So that gives me 6. And then 6 minus 6 is 0. Okay, so this polynomial right here is, now this is your remainder. Remainder is 0, so then it turns out that x plus 3 is a factor of the polynomial of 5x cubed of the cubic function. And so your answer is 5x squared plus 3x minus 2. That's the other factor. Okay, so another one using synthetic division to divide. So we bring down the 9. 9 times 2 is 18. When you combine these two, you get 0. 0 times 2 is 0. And then when you combine those two, you get negative 16. Negative 16 times 2 is negative 32. Combine these two, you get 0. So here's the polynomial. So this means that the constant is negative 16. The 0 is x, and this would be your x squared. So the other factor is 9x squared minus 16. And I could factor further. Actually, on number 24, I could have factored further also, but it didn't ask you to do it. But if you had to, this is 3x plus 4, 3x minus 4. Okay? Alright, so for number 30, I did have to add a couple of placeholders because there was no square and no x term. So we bring down the 1, and then 1 times 9 is 9. Combine, you get 9. 9 times 9, 81. You add those, you get 81. And 81 times 9 is 729, so that's remainder 0. So here's the remaining polynomial, the factor. So this would be x squared plus 9x plus 81. Because remember, this is the remainder, this is the constant, this is your x, and this is your x squared. Okay? And this one does not factor anymore, so this will be the other factor. Alright, so for 43 we have 4 problems we're going to be evaluating. So f of 1, here are the, again I had to add a placeholder here because there was no x squared. So you bring down the 2. 2 times 1 is 2. You add 2 and 0, that's 2. 2 times 1 is 2. You combine negative 7 and 2, you get negative 5. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5, and then negative 2. So here's your result. So f of 1 is negative 2. For part B, so we're evaluating the same polynomial, but at a different x value. So bring down the 2. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Combine, that gives you 8. Minus 7 is 1. Negative 2 and 1. So here's the result. F of negative 2. And if we think back to the intermediate value theorem, and then I gave you a handout for that last week, notice how f of 1 gave us a negative 2, and f of negative 2 gave us a 1. So that tells me, that theorem tells me that between x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 1, in that interval, there has to be a real 0. Because see how this is a negative value and this is a positive value? So between negative 2 and 1, there has to be a 0. Okay, so now we're evaluating at x equals 1/2, so you bring down the 2. 2 times a half is 1. Okay, so that you get 1. 1 times a half is a half. And 1/2 minus 7 is negative 6.5, so I'm going to put negative, instead of negative 6.5, I'll put it as an improper fraction, so I'll put negative 13 halves. Times a half is negative 13 fourths. Sorry about that. So 3 minus 13 fourths, well, 3 over 1 is actually 12 over 4, right? So 12 fourths minus 13 fourths is negative 1/4. So that's my result right there. So f of 1/2 is negative 1/4. Okay. So So now I'm evaluating f of 2, so it's